The galaxy was a canvas of chaos, brushed with strokes of laser fire and the grim silhouettes of warships locked in a perpetual ballet of destruction. For Kaelen Thorne, it was just another payday. A mercenary pilot with a name whispered in hushed tones across the spacers' bars of the Outer Rim, Kai was a creature of habit and necessity. His philosophy, simple as the rusty spanner he carried: get in, get paid, get out. But the cosmos, as it often did, had a different plan in mind. Caught in the crosshairs of a war far older than the Earth he barely remembered, Kai's battered freighter, the Wanderlust, limped through the swirling void. A recent skirmish near the Proxima Centauri system had left her shields sputtering, her engines groaning, and his bank account looking decidedly healthier. Yet, as always seemed to be the case, the universe found new ways to take that away as quickly as it gave. The distress signal crackled through the Wanderlust's ancient comm system. A desperate plea, layered with static and a chilling sense of urgency. An heiress to the throne. The Cthar. Abducted. Rescue, and a reward that made Kai's eyes water. Normally, he'd have scoffed. Royal rescues weren't his style. Too many strings, too much political maneuvering, too little actual money. He was a pilot, not a diplomat. But something in the ragged desperation of that signal, it tugged at a thread of empathy he thought he'd long ago burned away in the fires of countless skirmishes. And besides, his ship needed repairs. A lot of them. He steered the Wanderlust toward the source of the signal, Xylo. A planet painted in shades of ochre and crimson by endless deserts, dominated by towering crystal pyramids that seemed to pierce the very heavens. Xylo was the ancestral homeworld of the Cthar, a species as enigmatic as their glittering architecture. A world saturated with legends of forgotten gods and the power of the crystals that pulsed beneath the sand. And currently, the epicenter of a civil war that threatened to shatter the Cthar Empire. Born to a family of nomadic scavengers on a forgotten corner of old Earth, Kai's life had been etched with the harsh realities of survival. They roamed the desolate plains, trading salvaged tech and bartering for sustenance, always one step ahead of the sandstorms and the ruthless gangs that preyed on the weak. His only inheritance, his father's worn leather jacket, a knack for fixing things, and an almost preternatural ability to pilot anything with an engine. His worldview was shaped by a harsh reality. With his family's passing, after a run-in with raiders that left Kai as the only survivor, he fled into space, becoming a hired gun, a pilot for those who could afford his services and didn't ask too many questions. Credits were the only truth he trusted, and the Wanderlust his only companion. Yet, beneath the sardonic humor and the carefully cultivated detachment, a ghost of his past haunted him. The faces of those he couldn't save, the weight of decisions made in the heat of battle, they clung to him like space dust, never quite shaken off. This internal conflict, between his pragmatic pursuit of profit and the lingering embers of a long-suppressed morality, simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right spark to ignite. The heiress to the Cthar throne was no damsel in distress. From the moment the hatch hissed open, revealing her huddled figure, it was clear Lyra possessed a will of iron, an intellect sharper than any crystal blade. But she was also a product of her environment, the insulated luxury of the royal court, the rigid traditions of the Cthar, and the weight of expectations that threatened to crush her spirit.
Raised on legends of her ancestors, and imbued with the power to manipulate the very essence of the planet's crystal energy, Lyra had been groomed for leadership since birth. Yet, the abduction exposed a vulnerability she hadn't known she possessed. It shattered the illusion of safety, forcing her to confront a harsh reality where royal blood offered no guarantees. As with the rest of her civilization, her people are dying without even knowing how to properly use their gifts. There was so much that was lost in the civil war before the two factions just chose to fight over who got it first. The loss of power had blinded this generation, but Lyra has the ability to see it still. And now one meat snout is saving her. The ruler of the Cathar was a force to be reckoned with. An icy pragmatist, Zaltara had clawed her way to the top through cunning, political maneuvering, and a ruthlessness that made even seasoned generals flinch. Her reign had been marked by stability and expansion, but at a heavy cost. Dissent was crushed, tradition was enforced with an iron fist, and the Cathar's ancient connection to the crystal energy was exploited for military gain. Her decision to offer Kai a position in her court was not born out of altruism. It was a calculated move, a chess piece in a far grander game. The alliance with a human pilot, a symbol of the outer world, could appease the growing discontent among her people, while also providing her with a unique asset, someone who understood the enemy better than any Cathar strategist ever could. In the not-so-distant past, Harlan was one of the Kaelen's best friends. The two shared a similar taste for high adrenaline, and high reward and a penchant for getting into serious trouble with their commanders. Even when the opportunity came to be the other's second-in-command, after Harlan's promotion, he was always at Kaelen's back and knew all his blind spots, as well as he knew himself. So what happened? What got into Harlan now is not only against him, but working to steal the only two known things Kaelen cared for. The wanderlust shuddered violently, as it breached the upper atmosphere of Xylo. Kai wrestled with the controls, his knuckles white against the worn grips. The readings were going haywire, the energy sandstorms, visible as swirling, electric purple walls on his antiquated sensors, were playing havoc with his shields. Damn near barbecued, Kai muttered, his voice tight as he fought to keep the freighter from being torn apart. His head was a mess as well, just now was getting close enough. Princess Lyra, he said to the comms were still active in this area. If you can hear me, I'm closing in, but this atmosphere is doing a number on me. Any idea of where they'd take a little girl and leave her? A voice cracked over the comm, filtered through static and desperation. The heiress, the northern expanse. The canyons offer protection from the storms. But, Vraxion, he'll have fortified the area. It will be suicide. Suicide was a relative term, Kai figured. He'd stared down death a few times already, it came with the gig. A thought that was starting to be more true than ever. He activated the navigation, following the beacon with his best guess as to what direction the comms were going. The wanderlust plunged deeper into the violet maelstrom. The landscape below was a tapestry of jagged canyons and towering crystal spires, bathed in the eerie, violet light of the energy storms. It was beautiful, in a brutal, unforgiving kind of way. But there was no time for sightseeing. Kai threaded the wanderlust through the narrow canyons, dodging rogue energy bursts that crackled dangerously close to his shields. Anything on sensors? Kai asked. I'm on my way in now, nothing but sand and crystal, came a quick reply from Lyra. Wait, there is a signal now, they are trying to communicate over radio, I suggest you do the same. All right, here goes nothing. Kaelen Thorne, do you read? The call was intercepted. Loud and clear, please call me Kai, what do I do? A pause. Then, this is Vraxion-Thane, leader of the resistance. I know why you're here, human. Kai's gut clenched. I'm just responding to a distress call. Nothing political. Lies. You've been bought and paid for by Zaltara. You don't understand what's at stake here. What the Queen is doing will destroy us all. The throne is a source of peace, but Zaltara's rule has corrupted every part of that peace. Kai grunted. Maybe. But that's not my fight. My job is to rescue the princess, and then I'm out of here. Then you're a fool. Harlan's voice hardened. I won't let you hand her back to that tyrant. Surrender now, or I will kill you both. The threat hung in the air, punctuated by the whine of a plasma cannon charging. Kai had no time for this. He cut the transmission, his pulse spiking. Time to do things his way. Princess, got any friendly fire codes I should know about? Affirmative. Lyra sent him a sequence of rapidly changing glyphs. These will scramble their targeting systems for a short while. You'll have to be fast, though. Their flak cannons are still online. Dropping below the storm clouds, Kai got his first real look at the rebel encampment. A cluster of makeshift shelters huddled beneath a towering crystal spire, ringed by hastily erected defense lines. Plasma cannons swiveled, their glowing barrels tracking the Wanderlust's every move. Right then, time for some trick flying. He locked into his most advanced countermeasures. Hold on tight, Princess, gonna start getting bumpy. What followed was a white-knuckle descent that tested all of Kai's skill. He danced the Wanderlust through a hailstorm of plasma fire, looping, diving, and weaving through the canyons with a recklessness that bordered on insane. He punched in the fire control access, and fired at the missile launcher in his path, doing just enough damage to disable, but nothing more. The turret went down in a flash. His shields flared, absorbing the brunt of the barrage, but Kai knew they wouldn't hold for long. He had to get Lyra out, and fast. One energy burst clipped the Wanderlust's left wing, sending the ship spinning wildly. Alarms blared, klaxons wailed. The princess grabbed onto the top of the comms terminal. Lyra screamed. Hang on. With a final, desperate maneuver, Kai wrestled the Wanderlust into a controlled crash landing near the perimeter of the camp. He slammed on the emergency brakes, and the freighter skidded to a halt, groaning in protest. Brace for impact. Kai shouted, bracing himself as what felt like an earthquake took place to try and stop the ship. I could be handling things like this better, if you'd trained me better. If I had better things wouldn't be getting shot at in the first place, he rebutted before opening the cockpit. Come on, time to see about your situation. He didn't give her the chance to come out. He picked her up and set off running with her. The airlock hissed open, releasing a blast of frigid air and the acrid stench of ozone. As the dust settled, the scene awaiting them was far from welcoming. Resistance fighters, clad in scavenged armor and bearing cobbled-together weapons, surrounded the Wanderlust. Their faces were grim, their eyes narrowed with suspicion. At the front of the pack, a familiar figure strode forward, Commander Vraxion-Thane, his face etched with weather, the cybernetic eye gleaming with cold calculation. He doesn't need to say anything. It looks like you might as well be his brother. Put the girl down, Thorne. Vraxion's voice was a low growl, cutting through the tension like a vibroblade. His gaze flicked to Lyra, then back to Kai and hardened. Don't make me do this the hard way. You know I will. The situation had just gone from bad to worse. But there was a strange calm descending on Kai as well, his past decisions and mistakes. All were starting to settle in and point him the way forward. But for who? His heart called for her, his morals to keep fighting, and himself needed someone to talk to again. Kai had a choice to make. Surrender to a cause he wasn't sure he believed in, or fight for something he didn't fully understand. The galactic fate, it seemed, rested on the shoulders of a washed-up pilot with a talent for improvisation. The offer to become Queen Zaltara's Crystal Guardian, ambassador to the unaligned systems, dangled before Kaelen Thorne like a shimmering mirage. Wealth, influence, the ear of the most powerful figure in this corner of the galaxy, things he, a mere mercenary, had only ever dreamed of. Yet, beneath the glittering surface of the Cathar capital, shadows stirred. Shadows of suspicion, prejudice, and a history of oppression that threatened to consume Kai from the inside. His decision hung heavy, amplified by the weight of countless alien eyes scrutinizing his every move. One wrong step, one misplaced word, and the grand offer could turn into a sentence, a life to be used for political gain. You're awfully quiet, human, Counselor Relandra rasped during one of the endless, mind-numbing diplomatic dinners. Her skeletal frame was draped in shimmering crystal silk, and her voice seemed to scrape against the air. "Are you contemplating the honor we are bestowing upon you? Perhaps it is too much for a creature of your background to comprehend." Kai, struggling to navigate the intricate Cathar etiquette, with a fork full of something that vaguely resembled iridescent worms, managed a wry smile. "Just taking it all in, counselor. It's a lot different than the mess halls of the Wanderlust." Relandra's lip curled slightly. "Indeed. Perhaps too different." These subtle jabs were a daily occurrence. Every smile felt like a test, every gesture analyzed for hidden motives. Even Lyra, despite their burgeoning friendship, couldn't shield him from the pervasive suspicion that clung to him like Xylo dust. However, the scrutiny from the Cathar establishment was only half the battle. The message from Harlan, his former comrade, had planted a seed of doubt that threatened to bloom into full-blown paranoia. Was Zaltara's offer genuine, or simply a gilded cage designed to keep him under her control? Driven by a gnawing unease, Kai began to explore the Cathar capital, venturing beyond the glittering palaces and diplomatic chambers. He was determined to see the empire through his own eyes, to unearth the truth that lay hidden beneath layers of propaganda and political maneuvering. His explorations led him to the lower districts of the capital, to the faces that didn't sit in those fancy meeting rooms. Deep in the crystal mines, here, the mining caste were a workforce who toiled day and night extracting the crystals that fueled Cathar society. He found them laboring under harsh conditions, their bodies scarred by crystal splinters, their minds dulled by exhaustion and a strange, crystal-based narcotic. "A happy lot you are," Kai whispered to a miner who had collapsed after a rockslide. "The Queen gives us purpose as do all. We will be done when they need no longer," he responded. "The Silent Ones," whispers in the undercastes mention one force of nature that came around once a month or so. They said with them, something like peace is in the air, but they are never seen or heard. Even though the mining caste have some connection to crystals, he doubts their abilities, more so that some telepathic group who just vanished. A group of the low caste spoke to him. They needed medicine that the city wouldn't give. They were sick from the energy. Kai started smuggling supplies to them, starting to build a plan. He couldn't help everyone, but he could bring light to just someone. However, Kai was now doing something considered treasonous. His actions didn't go unnoticed. The Cathar secret police, known as the Crystal Guard, began to shadow him, their presence a constant, unnerving reminder of the Queen's watchful eye. Even his sanctuary, the Wanderlust, was no longer safe. He found his datapad wiped, his engine sabotaged, and unsettling whispers in the comms, "We know you know." The walls seemed to close in, the gilded cage shrinking. Just as Kai felt like he would drown, he received a new coded message from his commander in the depths of the city. They were to meet near the mines, in an abandoned mining tunnel. The tunnel reeked of dust and old energy, the air thick with an eerie silence. Kai's hand hovered over his pulse pistol, his senses on high alert. The faint glow of his comms screen illuminated the face of Vraxion-Thane, his scarred visage even more haggard in the dim light. "You've seen it, Thorne," Vraxion's voice was low and urgent. "The truth behind their lies. Join us, and we can break this chain." Kai hesitated. I need proof." "Proof? Look around you. The mining caste slaves in darkness, the silent ones silenced, a people dying to support a war they don't even know about. Is that not enough?" Vraxion then laid out his plan. A daring raid on the Crystal Archives, the repository of the Cathar Empire's most closely guarded secrets. There, Kai would find irrefutable evidence of Zaltara's corruption, and expose her lies to the Council. "This isn't a game, Thorne. We can save Xylo and the worlds it controls, together. Or you can remain her puppet, a symbol to be paraded about and discarded when you've served your purpose, but there will be no happy endings for you." Was this a genuine offer, or another trap? Could he trust a revolutionary, who was willing to sacrifice anything for his cause? Did he believe in the rebellion's ideals, or were they just another form of control? Was it just the promise that he could have justice for his family who passed before that gave him this energy? The choice seemed impossible. Picking Zaltara led to his death, or something much worse. But Harlan, he had changed into someone he didn't recognize. The idealism he used to love now only saw results and necessity, something he always hated. The line between right and wrong had blurred beyond recognition. As Kai considered the weight of his decision, he knew one thing for certain: this was no longer about credits or survival. This was about something far greater, something that would define his very being. And at his center was Lyra. What did she think? What did she want? Was she simply a prisoner, or could she be as dangerous as those in power? He needed to do all he could to keep her safe. The weight of his choices pressed down on him, heavy as the Xylo night. He would choose his place on this board carefully, because one wrong choice would send this whole chess board tumbling into ruin. Kai's fate, and perhaps the fate of the Vraxion Empire, hung in the balance. Now designated as the Crystal Guardian, Kai found himself thrust into a world of dizzying heights and unnerving depths, where every smile was a potential dagger and every gesture a battlefield. He had chosen, or perhaps been chosen, to navigate the treacherous waters of Vraxion high society, all while a civil war brewed just beneath the surface. His newfound status came with privileges, of course. A suite of rooms carved directly into a colossal crystal spire, a personal staff of robotic servants, and the finest rations the Empire had to offer, though Kai still missed a good Earth burger. But these comforts were merely gilded bars on his cage. He was an outsider, a curiosity, and a threat all rolled into one. Isolation and suspicion. Stepping into the glittering halls of the Cathar capital was like walking onto the set of a dream he'd never dared to have. Towering structures of amethyst and obsidian defied gravity, shimmering with embedded energy conduits. Beings with skin like polished jade and eyes that shifted like captured nebulae moved with a regal grace that made Kai feel every bit the rough-edged spacer he was. The silent treatment. Despite his elevated status, Kai found himself subtly ostracized. Conversations would halt abruptly when he entered a room. Invitations to social gatherings mysteriously went astray. He was a ghost in his own castle, always watched, but never truly seen. 1,000 eyes, the Crystal Guard, Zaltara's personal security force, became his constant companions, though hardly welcoming ones. These stoic figures, clad in seamless silver armor that amplified their already intimidating presence, were never more than a few paces away. Every word, every action, every breath he took was recorded, analyzed, and undoubtedly reported back to the Queen. Political whispers. He learned that some members of the Crystal Council had reservations about Kai. These doubts had started to ripple to the common folk. They were hesitant to help, let alone see him. He now didn't only have no power, but also the fear that he wasn't going to be a help. Crystal energy and Cathar cultural barriers. The Cathar civilization revolved around the energy derived from the massive crystals that honeycombed Xylo. They powered their cities, fueled their warships, and even shaped their social hierarchy. But for Kai, a son of Earth, understanding this source of power was like trying to grasp smoke. A language beyond words, the primary form of communication between the Cathar, Kai discovered, involved the subtle manipulation of crystal energy, a language of emotion, an intent that bypassed spoken words entirely. Kai, unable to tap into this telepathic web, felt perpetually out of the loop. Lyra the tutor, recognizing Kai's struggles, Lyra took it upon herself to act as his guide, his translator, and his bridge to the Cathar culture. She explained the nuances of crystal energy, the importance of tradition, and the delicate balance of power within the Empire. She was invaluable in navigating their world. Dependency and frustration. While grateful for Lyra's help, Kai couldn't shake the feeling of dependency. He was a seasoned pilot, a resourceful survivor, yet here he was, reduced to relying on a teenager to understand the simplest interactions. The frustration gnawed at his pride, fueling his determination to find his own place within the Cathar Empire. Plots and pursuits. With open enemies, there is a much higher chance at finding the right guy than the knife in your back. An attempt on the Guardian, one seemingly harmless evening as Kai was walking from the medical supplies, the power of the corridor had gone completely off. This wasn't a normal thing, Kai had thought to himself. He then felt a plasma blast whiz by him. He managed to dodge the attack. The conspiracy deepens. As Kai delved deeper into his investigation, the truth of the attacks started to reveal itself. Someone was trying to make him leave in order to use a new Guardian, who had vested interest on the planet. Allies in unexpected places. As Kai was to be chased and killed, he would need to understand not only who was after him, but if people could even see what he does. During his exploration of the city and its low castes, he befriended an engineer named Nala. She made repairs and had contacts for materials, and quickly realized what her superiors were asking for was not to protect. He also ran into a strange and mystic silent one named Noma, who seemed to speak to him in echoes instead of his mind, and was willing to share what he thought. The initial goodwill, the promise of a new era of peace, and was nothing but a front for something far more dangerous. The war for Xylo, Kai realized, wasn't just being fought on distant battlefields. It was being waged within the heart of the capital, and he was now a key player in a game he didn't fully understand. His loyalty, his allegiances, his very survival were all on the line. It was time to choose a side, and the decision could reshape the fate of an entire galaxy. Amidst the swirling political machinations and lurking dangers, an unexpected bond began to blossom between Kai and Lyra. What started as a wary alliance, a partnership born of necessity, slowly transformed into something deeper, more meaningful. Their relationship became a beacon of hope in a galaxy teetering on the brink of destruction, a testament to the power of connection across cultural divides. An unexpected bond. Though their first encounter was fraught with hostility, a grudging respect began to grow between the rugged, cynical pilot and the headstrong princess. It was a slow, hesitant dance, punctuated by barbed remarks and veiled mistrust. But beneath the surface, a genuine connection began to take root. Shared confidences, stolen moments, the heavy weight of their responsibilities brought the two closer as they talked of times gone past, a way to relieve the weight. They would find each other in less crowded hallways or the balconies overlooking the city. It would seem odd from afar, a grown man and a small teenager, but the two were as close as each other during this storm. Lyra would listen intently as Kai would describe the wide plains of Earth. His home, which was so similar to hers but so different. To listen to all that sand and the wind was just another day for him. He loved that she took in the knowledge, as if she were to make the decision herself when she had to. Learning from laughter, despite the war-torn world they inhabited, moments of shared laughter became a precious commodity. Lyra, with her formal upbringing, found Kai's irreverent humor both shocking and strangely refreshing. For his part, Kai was charmed by the princess's sharp wit and her ability to find humor in the darkest situations. The code of the warrior, he taught Lyra everything he knew about combat, not because he needed her on the war ground again, but to help her realize strength came from mind and heart. Her use of energy had grown, but so did her empathy and understanding of what was going on around her. Perils and trials. Their growing bond made them a target. Powerful factions within the Cathar Empire saw their alliance as a threat to the established order, and forces both visible and unseen conspired to drive a wedge between them. Framed for treason, a skilled forger of the council was going to make a transmission that Kai was meeting with Harlan and planning to betray the queen. Someone was working against Kai and using his past against him. The plan was foiled, however, when Lyra found a different transmission. Lyra the target. While this one was obvious to the people of the Empire, Lyra was not. They assumed she was a child and did not need to be saved. As Kai dove over him, they felt that the only important thing was to protect Lyra. The price of trust. These betrayals forced Kai and Lyra to examine the foundations of their bond. Could they truly trust each other, or were they doomed to be pawns in a much larger game? Their journey together wasn't just about surviving political plots or dodging assassination attempts. It was a transformative experience, a cultural exchange that blurred the lines between two vastly different worlds. Earth to the Empire. As Kai taught Lyra about Earth, they were both changed. How to fix things, a little Earth humor in an intergalactic room, what was good to eat when energy wasn't all you needed. It made the two so close it would be scary. Empire to Earth. He was just a pilot without much more. No history with his family, his home as his home was destroyed. Nothing but his skills to get from here to point B. She taught him he was more than that. He saved her and now he can help her change the Empire. Through his relationship with Lyra, Kai discovered that even in the midst of war and political intrigue, there was still room for connection, for compassion, and for hope. And Lyra, in turn, learned that true leadership wasn't about power or control, but about empathy, understanding, and the courage to challenge the status quo. The Gilded Cage, as Kai had come to think of the royal palace, was starting to feel claustrophobic. Every opulent hallway, every shimmering crystal, seemed to whisper of secrets and shadows. Zaltara's offer, once so alluring, now felt like a silken noose tightening around his neck. Harlan's warning, dismissed at first, now echoed in the back of his mind, a persistent, grating dissonance. He knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to learn the truth, even if it shattered the fragile peace he hoped to build. Arlen's motives, at first glance, appeared noble, to overthrow a corrupt regime and liberate the oppressed. But as Kai delved deeper into the rebel commander's history, a more sinister picture emerged. The ends justify the means. Vraxion, it seemed, was willing to sacrifice anything, and anyone, to achieve his goals. He saw the ends as justifying the means, and his definition of means grew more ruthless with each passing day. Propaganda campaigns that demonized the royal family, acts of sabotage that crippled vital infrastructure, and even the targeted assassinations of those who dared to oppose him. Kai knew it was wrong. Harlan was killing innocents. An unholy alliance. One of the most disturbing revelations was the extent of Harlan's support. He had successfully rallied the most disgruntled factions within the Cathar Empire, including radicalized elements of the mining caste and the Silent Ones. All these pieces fell in place when it was time for Lyra, his friend, to die. Kai was there and stopped him. I understand. You think, but I did it. I am doing it. To protect all who want to join the way. They gave their lives for the vision. I could only hope they were strong enough to make it. The air hung heavy, stagnant. The former admiral's words rang in the air. With this revelation, Kai knew he no longer had a choice. He could no longer dismiss Harlan as a disgruntled extremist. He was a dangerous, charismatic leader, willing to burn the entire galaxy to ashes in pursuit of his twisted vision of utopia. A vision he needs to make right. And make for himself. With no more pretenses, a line was drawn. Zaltara and Kai worked closely, discussing what they would be able to do and how to beat a man that knew the both of them so intimately. Each had things to gain and both had things to lose. A wrong move and all is gone. A delicate dance. Kai, now a reluctant advisor, used his position to subtly steer the Queen toward a more conciliatory path. He convinced her to address the concerns of the mining caste, to invest in new technologies that would alleviate their suffering, and to reach out to the unaligned systems with offers of trade and cooperation. His words, though carefully chosen, were often met with suspicion and resistance from the council, but Zaltara, intrigued by this earthling's unconventional thinking, allowed him to proceed, at least for now. Unmasking the truth, at the same time, Kai worked with Lyra and Nola, his trusted engineer, to secretly gather evidence against Harlan. They combed through encrypted data logs, deciphered coded messages, and interviewed those who had been victimized by the rebel commander's tactics. They had to gather evidence against him. The seeds of change. Kai helped to release many of the slaves from the power of the Force and the crystal, something they believed did more harm than good to most of the people. As the pieces fell into place, Kai knew the confrontation with Vraxion-Thane was inevitable. It would be a showdown that would determine not only his own fate, but also the future of the Cathar Empire. As time fell between them in the throne room, Kai couldn't help but wonder what were the intentions with all this. Invasion and peace were what it came down to. What was it going to be? 2 standard weeks later, Xylo was hardly a paradise. Scars of war still marred the landscape, and distrust lingered in the hearts of many. But a seed of hope had been planted, nurtured by Kai's unwavering belief in the power of human connection. The Crystal Council, expanded to include representatives from the mining caste and even former rebels, convened regularly, wrestling with the complex challenges of rebuilding a fractured society. Their sessions were often tense, punctuated by heated debates and disagreements. But they were talking, they were listening, and they were, slowly but surely, forging a new path forward. Vraxion-Thane, instead of being imprisoned or executed, was appointed as a liaison. Someone to keep the council's views to the people, his old way of life, and to keep someone in check. He was never given the chance of weapons, and it was assumed he would only hold this for a short time. Looking upon Xylo reminded him so much of his past. There had to be other worlds, his mission was still far from over. It was time to explore that side of being a human that he was known for. How do I do what comes next, Kai said, his voice to Zaltara. How do I even begin to handle what comes next? Zaltara had no answer, but Lyra had one. She made it clear to him, what she had to do was to help people understand each other. What was good, what was worth dying for. That those answers could be used to build something new. He also learned that it was more than just a war, he learned more about the past with his family. The power to do so was not with the people, or the gems, but the hearts. Kai stood once more on the balcony, overlooking the cityscape of Xylo, the violet sky a canvas of swirling nebulae. The weight of his decisions still lingered, but it was now tempered with a sense of purpose. He was no longer just a mercenary, a pilot for hire. He was a bridge between worlds, a champion of understanding in a galaxy torn apart by conflict. Lyra joined him, a mischievous glint in her eyes. You know, she said, leaning against the railing, Mother said something funny about you after that last council meeting. Kai raised an eyebrow. Oh yeah. What's that? She said you're inconveniently human. Apparently, that's a compliment. Kai chuckled. Guess I'll take it as one. But what is coming over the horizon? Well, we will need a friend in you and not just a general on a field. So we need to figure out what that looks like. Kai stepped away for a brief moment to clear his thoughts, the things that I know and think and have said, well, how well is this really going? He was now met with the face of his father, a man who loved them so much and lost so much. What was he doing on this mission, when those very ideals got those that he knew dead? If only I was there, to keep her safe, a voice muttered, it couldn't be heard, but he could feel it. Only she knows of what she can do and what is to become of her. You'll do what you can do, but it might not be that. Can't help, but follow what her mind has. He quickly realized he couldn't go around like this. This is what made them the bad guy all along. To care and not have control and try to take it back. Kai didn't respond, but looked at the stars. After a long pause, he spoke. My name is Kaelen Thorne, and I'm ready to be more than human, she smiled.